Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Hi Krishna. I still wanted to invoke auspiciousness and the mercy of the Transcendent Lord. And today we are going to honor Gaura Babaji Disappearance Day. And personally, I feel privileged and very unqualified, but very privileged at the same time to be speaking today on Gaura Babaji Disappearance Day, and to be privileged to glorify his greatness, great devotee of the Lord. Sometimes people think, like, let's say, some of us and people in general think like, well, resists not wanted to merge into the oneness of being a devotee. Okay, like, I don't want to wear a sari. I don't want to cut my hair and have a sikha. I don't want to wear a dhoti. I don't want to look like a devotee. And many people maybe think like, yeah, well, I want to keep my independence. I want to keep my unique personality. So, and sometimes people tell us like, yeah, you're like robot. You all look the same. You have the same clothing and you have the same type of marking on your head and the same haircut, and you speak all the same. And there is no more individuality. When you become a devotee, there is no more individuality. And this is so far from the reality. The reality is that fashion, like, like people think their individuality is marked by the type of clothes they wear, or the kind of haircut they have, or the color of their hair, or so many things that they claim, or we can claim, that it makes me different. It makes me individual. It makes me have a personality. But in reality, it's quite the opposite. It's just, like trying to decorate a dead body and think that this body is mine and that's who I am. And through that fashion, through that way of dressing, then, or that way of presenting myself, or personality, or the music I'm listening to, or all that people consider makes their individuality, in fact, only present the paradigms that they have lost their individuality and they are identifying with something that they are not, or we are not. And so speaking about Gaura Babaji, and in general, when we speak about the Acharya, we can see that in a sense, they all look the same. They all like renounce order of life. Most of them, they wear saffron and, like that. And they eat the same thing. They have the same type of schedule, getting up in the morning. They do the same activities. They chant Hare Krishna. They worship Lord Krishna. They speak the same language of the Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita. And at the same time, they have so much variety and there is so much distinctive personality in each of them. So that's something I was reflecting on, how like quite the opposite when we allow ourselves to materially look all the same, then our spiritual identity and our spiritual diversification is manifesting. As long as we want to manifest our distinction to whatever is happening with the body or our material consciousness or our material existence, then the quality of the soul, the unique diversity of those of our personality, our true personality as a soul, then doesn't have the space to really manifest. So Gaura Kishore Das Babaji is a great example of that. Before we go into the life of Gaura Kishore Das Babaji, I was thinking we could highlight the pranam mantras of our different acharyas, because we don't speak so often about the altar and the personality on the altar and the disciplic succession in details. And mainly in our altars that Srila Prabhupada gave us, there is 4 personality acharyas, teachers. There is, of course, Srila Prabhupada, his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, and then the spiritual master of Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur with Gaura Kishore Das Babaji, and then the spiritual master of Gaura Kishore Das Babaji with Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and the spiritual master of Bhaktivinoda Thakur with Jagannath Das Babaji. So I was thinking we could start with the pranam mantra and read the translation, because to this translation of the pranam mantra, we highlight the special mission of each of them and their special quality that's manifesting Krishna's quality, that's manifesting Krishna's mission, and that's manifesting how Krishna is using them as instrument in a very specific way. So we have our Prabhupada. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Tinamine. We all know the Sanskrit, and now is the exact translation. I offer my respectful obeisances unto His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who is very dear to Lord Krishna on this earth, having taken shelter at His lotus feet. So he's very dear to Krishna on this earth. So specifically, his mission was global on this earth. And that is a very unique in our disciplic succession, is the first Acharya who spread the holy name of the Lord, who spread the mission of Lord Chaitanya, who spread to fulfill the desire of Krishna on this earth, meaning the entire world. And Srila Prabhupada traveled the globe so many times. And so his second pranam mantra, Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gaura Vani Pracharine Nirvesesha Shu Nirvadi Paschyacha Dejatarini. And the exact translation is, our respectful obeisances are unto you, O spiritual master, servant of Sarasvati Goswami. You are kindly preaching the message of Lord Chaitanya Dev and delivering the Western countries which are filled with impersonalism and voidism. So again, that pranam mantra is highlighting Srila Prabhupada's position as a servant of Sarasvati Thakur and as a very empowered commander of Lord Chaitanya's mission in the Western world, where there's so much voidism and impersonalism. Now, Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur has 4 pranam mantras, and we are going to recite the Sanskrit and the English. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Namine. I offer my respectful obeisances unto His Divine Grace, Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, who is very dear to Lord Krishna, having taken shelter of His lotus feet. And then the second pranam, Shivashna Davidevi Daitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Daine Prabhave Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances to Sri Varshabhanavi Devi Daita Das, another name of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur. In fact, Gaura Kishore Das Babaji gave that name to Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur at the time of initiation. He called him Sri Varshabhanavi Devi Daita Das. So that was his name, coming from Gaura Kishore Das Babaji, or another name of Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur, who is favored by Srimati Radharani and with the ocean of transcendental mercy and the deliverance of the science of Krishna. Madhuryo Jwala Premadya Shri Rupa Nuga Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute. That's the last one of his pranam mantra. The third one. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, the personified energy of Sri Chaitanya's mercy, who deliver devotional service, which is enriched with conjugal love of Radha and Krishna, coming exactly in the line of revelation of Srila Rupa Goswami. Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Upanuga Viruda Pa Siddhanta Dwanta Arine. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, who are the personified teaching of Lord Chaitanya. You are the deliverer of the fallen soul. You do not tolerate any statement which is against the teaching of devotional service enunciated by Sri Rupa Goswami. So again, we can see how Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur is not, his mission is different than Srila Prabhupada. And it's very elevated. All his pranam mantra are connected with the love of Radha Krishna, the teaching of Srila Rupa Goswami, and also the fact that he was a lion guru and he couldn't tolerate any deviation and statement against the teaching of devotional service. And now we are coming to Sri Gaura Kishore Das pranam mantra, and he has only one. One disciple, one pranam mantra. Namo Gaura Kishoraya Shakshat Vairagya Murtaye Vipalambar Asambodhe Padambujaya Te Namaha. And this means I offer my respectful obeisances unto Gaura Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, the spiritual master of Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati, with renunciation personified. He is always merged in a feeling of separation and intense love of Krishna. So his very special, empowered position in the world, and we will hear later on how directed by the super soul, his special position is his renunciation. And we will speak more about the renunciation of Gaura Kishore Das Babaji. And now Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur Pranam, it's also only one. Namo Bhaktivinodaya Sakshitananda Namine Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Sakshidanandan, Da Bhaktivinod, with transcendental energy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is a strict follower of the Goswami, headed by Sri Rupa Goswami. And Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Pranam. Gaura Vibhava Bhume Tvam Nirdeshta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarva Moma Shri Jagannathaya Te Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Jagannath Das Babaji, who is respected by the entire Vaishnava community and was discovered the place where Lord Chaitanya appeared. And that's also part of very special gift that Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, at the end of his life, he was 125, and he was in a basket. His followers were carrying him a little basket, and he discovered, and he confirmed really the place of Lord Chaitanya's birth. And that's a whole story on itself too, how this Babaji Maharaj, how he, at 125, when he was in a basket and completely crippled, when he arrived at the site of the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya, he jumped out of his basket and started to dance in ecstasy. So, So Gaura Kishore Das Babaji was born in 1830s. So we say about, because we don't really know the time of his birth, because he was born from Vaishya family. they were selling, they were like selling goods. And in those time, in 1800s, there was not a really good, how you call that? A record of births and deaths, at least not in a lower caste. And, I'm sure in India now, there are still people who are not counted as population, all the people who are born in the street or in slums or things like that. And I'm sure in America also not everybody is accounted for. But in those times, only the Brahmins and the Kshatriya, of course the Brahmins, because they have the knowledge, and they have the knowledge of astrology, for example. So they will take accounting of the birth of a child, and also the time of birth and all that. And also they were literate, they could write. And so they were able to keep track. And of course, the Kshatriya were the rulers, and everybody will celebrate the birth of a prince or even a princess. So naturally, there was accounting for those births. However, Gaura Das Babaji, he had a very humble birth. He was born in Bangladesh, which is now Bangladesh. At the time, it was West Bengal. And West Bengal was East Bengal. It was extending towards Bangladesh, and that border came later. Now it's Bangladesh. And in Bangladesh, we can still find Vaishnavas there. And the Vaishnavas are in a very difficult position because the whole country is a Muslim country. And even recently, just a few years ago, the temple there was attacked. And at the same time, it's described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is so many Vaishnavas that were coming from Bangladesh. And Lord Nityananda went there a lot to preach in Bangladesh. Anyhow, that's where Gaura Das Babaji Maharaj was born, in a Vaishya family, and he had a business, and he took the business of his father. And what's amazing is Gaura Das Babaji never learned to really read and write. And so he was considered illiterate. He never signed his name. And in a sense, he signed his name he signed his name in everything that his disciple Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur have done, was signed by Gaura Das Babaji, because each disciple is only a servant of his spiritual master and never a master. So everything Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur has done and manifested is all signed by Gaura Das Babaji Maharaj. But he never learned how to sign his name. So Gaura Das Babaji Maharaj, he was born in the 1830s. We don't know exactly, in a Vaishya family. And of course, in a Vaishya family, boys will be married very young, and the girls will also be very happy to be married with someone who have the ability to make a living. And Gaura Das Babaji Maharaj was married for, some people said 20 years. His biography is not exact because, again, he didn't know how to write. And so there is not much record, and a record where historian kind of found information there and there. So 1830s is his date of birth. He was married 20 plus years. Some historians say 29, some say 20. And then after that, his wife passed away. And when his wife passed away in Bangladesh, then Babaji Maharaj, who was always a devotee of the Lord, he's a pure devotee of the Lord, he saw that as a sign, and he left everything behind, and he moved to Vrindavan. And he went to Vrindavan there in a very humble state, and he stayed in Vrindavan for 20 years. And his time in Vrindavan was very humble. He was serving the Vaishnava, he was serving the Brajbasi, and he was recognized as a very advanced soul. He will sleep under a different tree every night. And so during that time, he was taking place, he was very renounced. And he said, he became completely renounced and returned under trees in various parts of the 168-mile Vraja Mandala circle of Vrindavan. he continuously acted thus for a period of approximately, well, some said 20 years, some said 30 years. He would sometimes travel to the holy place of pilgrimage in the northern and western India, as well as Gaura Mandala. And in some historians, it says that at one point he had a dream because he wasn't satisfied. He was feeling like, I'm an offender on a dam, because of his humility and because of his humble birth, he never thought that he was anyone special. So he felt like, I'm an offender on a dam. I'm just a pretender. And then I heard there was different version that he was told to go to Navadvip. And there is another version when they say that as soon as he heard that Bhaktivinoda Thakur, helped by Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, discovered the birth site of Lord Chaitanya, he went there. And then that's where he spent the rest of his life. And let me look at my notes, because I could speak for hours now, not go to where I wanted to go. So Babaji Maharaj, he was quite elevated, and is described as having an acute detachment. And from the Srimad Bhagavatam, we learn Vasudeve Bhagavati, Bhakti Yoga Prayojita, Gyanatya Sasu Vairagyam, Gyanam Chayad, Hahaitukam. So that from rendering devotional service unto the personality of God, that Sri Krishna, one immediately acquired causeless mercy and detachment from the world. So for Babaji Maharaj, his detachment from the world, his renunciation, was born on his devotion to Krishna. His feeling of separation, his feeling of desiring to be in constant association with the Lord. He didn't want that connection with Krishna to be disturbed by anything. So because of that, he was completely detached and renounced. And he was well known for that. And when he was in Vrindavan, even the Brajbasi and all the sadhus and sages of Vrindavan, they declared him a Bhajananandi. And he took Babaji initiation, which a Babaji initiation is different than a sannyas initiation, because the Babajis, they are taking initiation to stay in seclusion, away from the world. And I think his spiritual master who gave him initiation, his name was Srila Bhagavad Das Babaji. So he took initiation from Srila Bhagavad Das Babaji, who was a disciple of Jagannath Das Babaji. And at that time, he was recognized as a Bhajananandi, as someone who was completely absorbed, completely connected in his bhajan with Radha and Krishna. And another point, that's a very interesting part also. Let's see if page 5, let's see if I can find it. In his manifest pastime, Srila Gaura Das Babaji Maharaj exhibited a relentless, acute detachment and indifference to the material world. Relentless, acute detachment and indifference to the material world. On the other hand, when he took occasion to extol the unlimited glories of the holy name and point out the varieties of teaching and hypocrisy of so-called renunciates, as well, I have 2 little Vaishnavas here, and they just got up. I will just give them some instruction. Bye. If you want, you can use my bathroom. And also on the table, I prepare everything you can have for breakfast if you're hungry. Eyeball. Sorry about that. On the other hand, when he took occasion to extol the unlimited glories of the holy name and point out the varieties of cheating and hypocrisy of so-called renunciates, as well as to reveal the inherent uselessness of endeavor for material happiness. His preaching was always effective and penetrating for his sincere hearers. And in fact, he didn't care for anyone who wanted to hear from you if they were not sincere. He will just divert them in material enjoyment. Also outwardly, almost illiterate and seemingly blind, scholars will approach him for the proper Siddhanta conclusion of difficult philosophical issues. And they always receive perfect explanation. So the scholar of Vrindavan, the scholar of Mathura, the scholar of Vaishnav literature, they will come to the illiterate Gaura Kishore Das Babaji when they had questions about Siddhanta, because things sometimes, like sadhus, they discuss and they are not sure what's a Siddhanta. And they will approach Gaura Kishore Das Babaji and always be satisfied with his response. Perfect explanation. They always received perfect explanation. Shri Gaura Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj was delighted to sit and hear the discourse of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur at Surabhi Kuj, Navadvip, and he respected Thakur Bhaktivinoda as his Siksha Guru. So really, he took initiation, like formal initiation, from a Babaji, and really the person from which he receives the most transcendental knowledge, which is the core of Diksha, of receiving. The one he receives the most of transcendental knowledge is Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And he will regularly hear Bhaktivinoda Thakur discourse on Srimad Bhagavatam. So let's see where I want to go now. Page 6. So in the history which follow, it may not always be perfectly clear why Srila Gaura Kishore Das Babaji acted as he did. He acted in a way that for materialistic people will feel extremely rude, and intolerant, inappropriate, inadequate, like that. So in the history which follow, it may not always be perfectly clear why Srila Gaura Kishore Das Babaji acted as he did, but we can at least be certain that it acted according to the direction of Krishna for the benefit of the world. Gaura Kishore Das Babaji didn't have any, we remember he was relentless and he was acute in his detachment and renunciation. So he had nothing to gain from being who he was. He didn't want to gain like fame or name, or he didn't care that people like him or doesn't like him or approve of him or think that he's a great devotee. He had no material attachment whatsoever. And so his manifestation, the manifestation of his pastime were directly enacted from the super soul, from Krishna guiding him to manifest himself in a certain way. And that way is so endearing, anyway, to me, about his unrelenting intolerance of all forms of hypocrisy. So, but at least according to by hearing about his unrelenting intolerance of all form of hypocrisy and deception, and his tremendous austerity and devotion, we hope to gain determination to practice Krishna consciousness with purity and to give up all form of deceit and duplicity. Crookedness, hypocrisy, and deceit are anartha, obstructive contamination of the heart, which are represented by the demoniac wizard Bakasura, which is the demons which is with a big beak. It's a big bird with a big beak in Krishna's pastime, who was killed by Krishna. This is described in the Chaitanya Shikshamrita of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. The Thakur also states, that without the destruction of deceit and crookedness, pure devotion to Krishna cannot arise. So back, Gaura Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, he was expert. There was one pastime, it was very interesting pastime, where at night he had a vision of one of the Babaji, like one of the guru, you know, like Vaishnav Babaji, like Brahman in Vrindavan that everybody was glorifying. And he had a vision at night of that person indulging himself with a woman. And the next day, he just like spoke very openly about that. And people were surprised because nobody knew that. So the Super Soul was constantly revealing to Babaji Maharaj the hypocrisy of devotional life. And for that, by hearing about Gaura Kishore Das Babaji, we can scrutinize our heart and see where is our own deceitful, using spiritual life for material gain of name, fame, or appreciation and approval, or using, you know, like not being like sincere. And of course, we all want to be sincere. And Gaura Kishore Das Babaji is helping us to see where we are not. Because if we were really sincere, then we will be free to act as we choose, just to please Krishna. Just having only one unique Ekihar Kurunandana, one aim and one desire only, to please Srila Prabhupada, please Guru and Krishna. Let's go somewhere else. So let's go to, I'm going to read some stories. There is so many stories about Gaura Kishore Das Babaji. Some of them, they are really difficult to even fathom because, the way he deals with the world doesn't have any cushion whatsoever. It doesn't have any cushion. So independent of the support of others. Yeah, so that I really liked. So in the year 1997, during the month of Falgun, when he was in his 60s, and at the time when the Yoga Pit birthplace of Lord Chaitanya was revealed, by the exertion of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Gaura Kishore Das Babaji proceeded to Navadvip Dham from Vrindavan under the instruction of Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj. From this time until his disappearance, Srila Gaura Kishore Das Babaji remained in Navadvip Dham, living in different villages and realizing their non-difference from the holy place of Vrindavan. He begged by gathering dry foodstuff from the householder of the holy Dham. He would sometimes offer those foodstuffs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead by the simple expedient of holding them in his hand. In order to cook, he would collect dry wood from the past, and he would wash earthen pots discarded by the villager along the roadside near the Ganges River on the occasion of eclipses. Due to the effect of an eclipse, such a pot were considered impure and unusable. So Gaura Kishore Das Babaji, he was collecting everything that people will consider impure and unusable. And from the material point of view, because people are so scared of doing things that are impure, but he wasn't scared of that because for him, he couldn't see the impurity of anything. In order to clothe himself, he will go to the shore of the Ganges and collect and wash discarded clothes that had been used to cover corpses at the burning ghat. Thus, he always remained independent of the support of others, simply by utilizing items of no value to anyone else. In such a manner, he obtained the practical necessities of life. Is that amazing? Thus, he always remained independent of the support of others. There is a story once a rich merchant wanted to have the favor of Gaura Kishore Das Babaji. Everyone wanted the favor of Gaura Kishore Das Babaji. He became very, very famous, and everyone wanted his favor because when we get the favor of of an advanced Vaishnav, he can become auspicious. So a lot of people were approaching him for auspiciousness. Auspicious means like, I become someone special, or I become someone famous, or maybe I will be able to marry my daughter easier, or maybe because it's auspicious, I will get fame and I will get money, or like that. And Gaura Das Babaji could see through all that. And he was not giving his audience so easily. But anyways, there was a very rich merchant. He came to Gaura Das Babaji because in the winter it was cold. It can get cold. And he gave him like a beautiful chador, like a very, very expensive wall chador. And Babaji Maharaj received it, which is very rare because usually he wasn't receiving any present, any money from anyone. But he received it that time, and he took it in front of the merchant. He took it. And as soon as he received it, then he went to the burning ghat where there is all the corpse, like where everybody is, to where all the corpses are burned. The burning ghat is a place along the Ganges River where they burn corpse. And he took the beautiful blanket and he wrapped one corpse around it. And then he took the torn clothes that were covering the corpse and he used that as his blanket without even washing it. So that's Gaura Das Babaji. What else? Okay, I'm going to go a little bit further in that book. I'm reading from a book. It's called Babaji Maharaj to Beyond Duality. So it's about Gaura Das Babaji Maharaj and Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj. And I've read this book a few times, and I still found so much nectar every time I read this book. So once there was a seeker, he wanted, there was a man who approached him with a faith and humility. Usually people will approach him and he will say, shoo away, didn't want to be with him. But in that situation, the person had faith, humility. And so Babaji Maharaj did hear the topic of concern that he had. And that person wanted to reside in a secluded place and do like and own his own, have his own place of worship and not be disturbed by, what's the story? I will read it because I don't really remember. The sharp words of the sadhu. Shri Gaura Das Babaji Maharaj always gave beneficial instruction to persons who approach him with faith and humility, no matter their spiritual status. On one such occasion, a seeker went to Babaji Maharaj to hear topics concerning the Supreme Lord, but he heard some harsh words from him instead. Babaji Maharaj was very cutting. Sadhu, the word sadhu means to cut. So a sadhu is supposed to cut to the material conditioning. And Babaji Maharaj was so expert that he wasn't like using flowery language. He wasn't trying to cushion everything he was saying. He was just cutting through. And then people will take it or not. And as far as he knew, it wasn't up to them because he didn't have any attachment that they take it. It was just, okay, here is the absolute truth. So that person, specific person, he felt offended by that. And how it goes. So that person decided to never go near Babaji Maharaj. But after some time, however, having been stricken with a distressed and troubled mind, he suddenly returned to see Babaji Maharaj. Srila Babaji Maharaj instantly realized the reason for his depression and told him, "Oh, you have left the association of devotees where topics about Krishna were discussed. And now you are living in a secluded place and performing solitary worship of Krishna. when one hears the topic of the Supreme Lord in the company of devotees, then one becomes free from Maya's net of illusion. But if one performs worship of the Lord in a secluded place, not in association with devotees, one becomes caught in the illusory energy. As a consequence, instead of topics about the Supreme Lord possessing the art, mundane subject matter will occupy it instead. So that's his mood. Okay, I will just tell one story and then I will read about his departure because I wanted to read that part. One story that's there is a few very famous story about Babaji Maharaj, but one of them that's very famous is that at one point there was a couple of rulers. They had a lot of money, very rich, and they wanted to create a bhajan kutir for Babaji Maharaj. They wanted to give him a beautiful place to live in. And Babaji Maharaj said, no, I don't want that. And if you want to lodge me, I want you to allow me to stay in a latrine. Latrine is a place where people go past. And in India, it's relevant because most people, and even nowadays, don't have a bathroom in their house. Like in the West, everybody have a bathroom in their house. So it's a little difficult for us to conceive. But a latrine is like a public bathroom in the place where anybody can come and pass, or otherwise they pass outside. And so also the couples, they cleaned the latrine and everything, but they couldn't understand. And Babaji Maharaj once says that he preferred to smell the smell of urine and stool than to smell the smell of material desires in pseudo-spiritualists. So that's Babaji Maharaj. And of course, when he was living in a latrine, it was a natural sorting out of all the insincere devotees, because all the insincere devotees, they are so careful to not mix with what's dirty and pure, not auspicious. So they will not come around to him. So he was peaceful to meditate and be in his own absorption with Krishna. And there was another pastime. It's someone was Doli Marivas. It was a person was married, and after his marriage, he went to see Gaura Das Babaji, and that person was like feeling very imbued with his personality because he had wealth, and also he was doing bhajan and chanting Hare Krishna. So everything was really going well for him in his life. And he went to approach Babaji Maharaj, okay, what do I do now in my marriage? And Babaji Maharaj gave him the instruction that every day he should cook for his wife. And he should cook for his wife and serve his wife, because his wife is the servant of Krishna. And so he should worship and cook every day for his wife and serve his wife. Because he could see that the man was pretentious. He was pretending being detached, but in fact, he was attached to his wife in a way of like, she's my wife, she's my slave, she's the one who do things for me. It was like the business exchange we sometimes speak about. And so the man, he was looking at his wife as his object of gratification, basically. And Babaji Maharaj turned that around and said, no, I want you to see that it's not your wife. It's Krishna's wife. She's Krishna's servant. And by serving as a servant of Krishna, that's how we get the mercy of Krishna. So that's one of the pastimes. There is so many pastimes. So I'm going to read the last one because I see our time is going off. That's too bad because I have so many stories. So his entrance into the eternal pastime of the Lord. So that's the end of his life. And again, it's so relevant of who Babaji Maharaj is. Abai, is it a possibility that you could endeavor to make less noise with a knife? Yeah. Thanks. In the Bengali years of 1322 at dawn, on the 30th day of the month of Kartik, corresponding to November 16, 1915, Srila Gaura Kishore Das Goswami entered the eternal pastime of the Lord. So just as a side point, we are in a month of Kartik. And of the month of Kartik, there is, of course, the month of Kartik, every devotional service we do, including, hearing class, chanting, and any devotional service we perform during this month is multiplied by 1,000, let's say. It's probably not the number, but just to give the point. So let's say it's multiplied by thousands, everything we do during Kartik. The 5 days, the Pancha, like the 5 days or last days of Kartik are the most auspicious days of the entire month. And we can count them like 10,000 times. So any devotional service rendered during those times, it's how auspicious those 5 days are. And within those 5 days, the Ekadasi, and I don't remember what's the name of the Ekadasi, but the Ekadasi contained within those 5 days, again multiplied by 1,000. So any devotional service rendered today during the Ekadasi of the last day of Kartik is extremely, extremely special. So that shows how auspicious this day is. And that's the day Gaura Kishore Das Babaji decided to leave the planet to go back to his eternal relationship with Shri Radha and Krishna. So that's just a side point. That day at sunrise, Srila Sarasvati Thakur left Sri Mayapur because he was in Korea, Gaura Kishore Babaji, and Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur was in Sri Mayapur for the Rani Dharmasala at Kalia, where Babaji Maharaj has been staying. The head priest of Navadvip various temples and ashram began to argue among themselves about where Babaji Maharaj's spiritual body would be interred. A heated argument arose. There was a material motive behind the dispute, for the contending parties considered that establishing the Babaji Samadhi at their ashram or temple will put them in a position to earn handsomely from pilgrims who would flock to see the tomb of the Paramahamsa. So in India, people go to those places of pilgrimage. So those Brahmins with running temple, they wanted Babaji Maharaj Samadhi to be in their temple because they wanted to make money. So again, Babaji Maharaj, even when he leaves his body, is highlighting something for us to take a look at. What's the motivation of people practicing Krishna consciousness? Anyway, Srila Sarasvati Thakur opposed their illegitimate attempt, however. Apprehending a breach of peace, Navadvip Inspector of Police, who was at the time Mr. Jatindranath Simha, arrived there. After much controversy, the various hypocritical Vaishnavas stated their position. Srila Sarasvati Thakur is not a sannyas, and thus he has no right to prepare a samadhi for a person whose renounced his home. Hearing their pronouncement, Sarasvati Thakur replied in a voice like thunder, saying, I am the sole disciple of Paramahamsa Babaji Maharaj. Even so, I have not accepted sannyas. I am a celibate brahmachari, and by the grace of Babaji Maharaj, I am not an hypocritical renunciate, secretly addicted to abominable habits or fornication, as some monkey-like people are. I take pride in saying this as a bearer of Babaji Maharaj's shoes. If there is someone here, and he's speaking with all leaders of temple in Navadvip, if there is someone here with a renunciation of truly stainless character, then he can come forward and arrange for a samadhi. I have no objection to that. He who within the last 1 year, and it changed, or 6 months, 3 months, 1 month, or even 3 days has not indulged in illicit association with women will be able to touch this spiritually blissful body. If anyone else touches it, he will be completely ruined. And of course, Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur was a pure devotee, austere devotee, Nastika Brahmachari. He had, mystic power, and he could declare that, and his word will be true. After this challenge was offered, the Babaji turned their backs one by one and departed from that place. The inspector of police was dumbfounded. Some of the people remained there, advised that Babaji Maharaj had expressed. Okay, so that's one thing, they all left. And then after that, some of them stayed. And some of the people remaining there advised that Babaji Maharaj had expressed the last desire that his body would drag to the street of Navadvip in the dust of the dam. To this, Sarasvati Thakur replied, also we are fools, inexperienced and offenders. We will still not be disinclined to understand the true meaning of those humility-filled words, which have been spoken by my Gurudev to destroy the pride of worldly-minded people. Even Krishna Chandra will personally think himself successful if he carries my Gurudev in his head on our shoulder. After the departure of Haridas Thakur, Sri Gaura Sundar took the spiritual body of Thakur on his lap and danced. That dignity he adorned with it. Therefore, following in the footsteps of Sriman Mahaprabhu, we shall also bear Babaji Maharaj's spiritually blissful body on our head. On the following day, November 17, 1915, on the Uttana Ekadasi in the afternoon, and according to the scriptural ordinance, Srila Sarasvati Thakur led the body of his Guru to rest on a newly formed sandskip on the Ganges of Kalia. A low-caste person of Lohagara from the district of Jessore, donating this property and claimed to give up all rights to it. Yet, after some time, he forgot his promise and utilized that land for various illicit materialistic activities. Also, he was criticized for this. He maintained his pride and committed offenses to the eternal associate of Lord Chaitanya. 16 years later, by the will of Gaura Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, his place of rest was eroded by the river Ganges and inundated by it. Srila Sarasvati Thakur organized a party of men and recovered the Samadhi intact. So his body was intact after 16 years, intact, and brought it to the bank of the Radhakund at Vrajapatana, where they re-established it before the memorial of Sri Guna Manjari. So here we discover the eternal position of Gaura Kishore Das Babaji. Nitya Gauranga Das Adhikari, the disciple of Srila Sarasvati Thakur, helped to construct a beautiful Samadhi temple on the side. So we can close with the pranam mantra of Gaura Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. Namo Gaura Kishoraya Shakshat Varagya Murtaye Vipalambara Sambodhi Padambojaya Te Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Gaura Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, the spiritual master of Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati, who is renunciation personified. He is always merged in a feeling of separation from an intense love of Krishna. Srila Gaura Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. Anyone would like to share question, comments about Gaura Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, realization, your own, favorite pastime of his pure devotees, Holiness Gaura Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj? Anything you would like to share? Hare Krishna. If you don't, I will share more stories. Yes, Kim.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I enjoyed the whole thing. I liked everything you were saying about him. I liked what you said about how he served his wife out of such good motives, and everything was great. But I don't, this isn't a very spiritual point, but it resonated so incredibly with me, which was, and I think you know this, about 2 or 3 months ago, I had decided I'm not buying any food, no food, under any circumstances. And and what happens is I decided it because every place I go, everyone I know, they seem to throw out food constantly. They're very, and our household was the worst of it, buying food endlessly and then throwing it out because there's too much, you know? So I'm like, I'm not buying food. So it's been amazing. I kept saying, if I run out of food, I will buy food, but I can't run out of food. It's just constant people are throwing out food. And I never asked for any food, anyone. And yet it never stops, the endless supply of food that people don't want, you know, and they just give me. It's the weirdest thing. So it really resonated with his story about, you know, what he did it for spiritual reasons. I wish I could say I did, but I probably did not. But anyway, it was just really resonated with that part of the story. And thank you for the whole class.
Well, you know, connecting with Gaura Babaji in such a friendly way of like, oh, I can understand him and I do the same. And, you know, I'm sure he's appreciating, you know, even so it may not be for spiritual reason or knowingly for spiritual reason, it's still a sacrifice. It's still stepping out of the materialism and addiction to shopping and to gating and to owning and to controlling, and just allowing Krishna to show you, like, you see, I provide. And so many people don't trust that. They don't trust that Krishna is going to provide. And so Krishna is giving you that experience. He is providing, and you're amazed, like, oh, it's constantly coming my way.
Yes, that is the experience I'm having, and I am seeing a spiritual connection from it, even before this story and before thinking of it that way. I do see that, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, Srila Prabhupada often say, you know, Krishna is providing for the elephants, you know, in the jungle or whatever, wherever the elephants are. And the elephant each elephant need to eat 1 ton of grass, whatever, every day. He said, you don't think that Krishna is going to provide for his devotees? So yes, you have direct experience of that. It's very inspiring, Kim, that you allowed yourself to, like, I'm not going to buy food. There is so much food that's being wasted and so many people buying food. I'm going to not buy food and see what's happened. And what's happening is that you were not against, you were ready to go buy food if food was running out, and it's not running out. Thank you. Hare Krishna. There was, oh, go ahead, Anandini.
Yes, Hare Krishna. Thank you for giving class and speaking about Gaura Kishore Das, Babaji. I always feel like a little daunted by the parampara, like not Srila Prabhupada so much, but the like previous acharyas. They feel like so elevated and so far away, and it's impossible for me to imagine their consciousness. And then we hear they're here to be an example for us, and that we should follow in their footsteps. And we hear of their departing like pastimes, and they all go back to Krishna. They go join the pastimes again, and then I think, well, what's going to happen to me? No, like I'm not a soul that was sent here by God, and then I go back. I come from the other the other direction. So is it necessary to become as elevated as, you know, as they were, to go back to God? Is it possible for like a soul like me in this lifetime or after this lifetime? I just, and many you know, things like they perform so wonderful, like they're so austere and so merciful, and yet I think, well, it's easy for them. They're coming from the spiritual world. how do we get there, and is it really necessary, or do they yeah, they have a special role? But yes, it's just some thoughts that I have.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And like you're looking at the Vaishnav in the disciplic succession, and they seem like very unattainable besides Srila Prabhupada, like far away and like in that, a different realm of existence altogether. And then you're wondering, okay, well, where does that put me? And in regard to Srila Prabhupada, the same, Srila Prabhupada was never forget Krishna. And it's interesting because when I was preparing for the last Bhagavatam class that I led, I dove into that topic very much. And Srila Prabhupada would make distinction between the Nitya Siddha, Kripa Siddha, and Sadhana Siddha. And he said, at the end, there is no difference. When someone is liberated, if he's a Kripa Siddha, if he's a Nitya Siddha, or if he's a Sadhana Siddha, it doesn't make any difference. Like if someone is know how to swim to the shore, or someone was like drowning in the ocean, and then someone teach them how to swim and they swim to the shore, or someone is drowning in the ocean and is put on a boat and put to the shore. At the end, they are all at the shore. And it doesn't matter how they came to the shore. Yeah. So Prabhupada presents that perspective. And so, there is different example of Kripa Siddha, like Jagana Madai. They were so fallen, so extremely fallen, like cursing, and even they even made offenses to Lord Nityananda, and they were raping women and robbing and using their position as constable to abuse people. And they received the mercy of Lord Nityananda, and right away they became liberated. And then there is Sadhana Siddha, and there is many Sadhana Siddha, like in our in history in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, of people getting, perfection through the sadhana. And so there is no difference. And at the same time, to enter the spiritual pastime and to enter the spiritual world, one needs to be 100% free from any material contamination. There is nothing material in the spiritual world. So nothing material can enter the spiritual world. So as long as there is any tinge of material attachment within the core of our consciousness and the soul's consciousness, then there is no place for us in the spiritual world. Yeah. So that's like there is no difference. And we need to be at the shore. If we go to the shore because we climb on a boat, if we go to the shore because we have learned how to swim, we need to be at the shore. And the shore is pure devotional service, which is devoid of any tinge of material karma or dhyana, mystic desire, desire for name, fame, anything material. And Gaura Das Babaji Maharaj is such a great example of that. It's just his mood, is so inspiring, because by his way of acting in the world, there is a deep humility that he considered himself nobody, that he wanted to be dragged in the street like that. And at the same time is like completely indifference to anything material, like complete indifference, subtle or gross, anything material, subtle or gross. Yeah. Any, how does that sound?
Yes, it makes sense. It creates some hope and some like, oh okay, like nothing material left in the heart. How is that possible?
Yeah, nothing material in the heart. It's like, yeah, otherwise it's not the spiritual world. The spiritual world doesn't have a tinge of material consciousness or contamination. So to enter the spiritual world, we need to be 100% of the same nature than the spiritual world. Like that.
Yeah. Thank you.
There was a story about Gaura Das Babaji Maharaj that I really like. It was the disappearance day of Sanatan Goswami. And so at that time, there was a brahmachari that was learning from Babaji Maharaj, and he was learning from him and he was serving him. So that day, Babaji Maharaj, he just got up and he was in ecstasy. He said, "Today we are going to have a festival for Sanatan Goswami." And so his disciple approaching and said, "Babaji Maharaj, where are we going to find the boga, and where are we going to find all what we need for the festival?" And Babaji Maharaj, he said, I will read the exact. And he said to that he responded, keep this to yourself. We will forego our daily meals and constantly chant the Lord's holy name. This is how paupers like us will celebrate the festivals. So the festival is celebrated by fasting, by not eating and by not doing anything. And he was jubilant. We get to have a festival today. Anything else? Okay. Srila Gaura Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Happy Ekadasi to everyone. And remember, it's Ekadasi within the 5 most auspicious days of the most auspicious months of the year. Hare Krishna.